think I figured out some stuff about Barry's past, guys. So you know the Rocks crew, right? That really powerful pirate crew that we just found out about in the last chapter? You know, you had Roxy, Zebek, you had Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, Captain John, Shiki, all on his crew. Well, Barry is a brick, which is kind of like a rock. So I think Barry used to be a member of Rox's crew, but he doesn't want anybody to know about it. Okay, so today's video is going to be about the Rocks Pirates, everything that we currently know, because Oda just had one of his world-famous info dumps, and just like, alright, I'm dumping the info on them, get ready, boys! Alright, Oda, thank you for your dump. I'm just going to be looking through all this information now, trying to piece all this together. Where to start? I'll start here. Tell you what, this might be a little bit conspiratorial on my end of things. Probably not going to be the case, but if nothing else, it's an interesting coincidence, alright? So just bear with me with this. Alright, so the name of the crew, Rocks. We saw how it was spelled in the last chapter, R-O-C-K-S. And the name of the captain and the founder of the crew was Rox D. Zebek. He usually just went by the name Rox, okay? He got together with a bunch of pirates on the Beehive Island. He decided to become king of the world. That was his objective goal, because keep in mind, this was back before Roger found the One Piece and did the whole Great Age of Piracy thing, okay? So, yeah, Rox wasn't trying to find the One Piece or Laugh-Tale or anything. He was trying to become king of the entire enchilada. The enchilada is the world here. Geography is Mexican dishes, mostly. Sometimes French dishes, but most of the time geography can be represented by, you know, tacos and the like. Anyway, so the point of this is that he got this group together and left, and they probably just called themselves, you know, the Rocks crew after their name of their captain, right? However, if you look at this word, and if you take each letter does represent a member of the crew, which I thought was a little weird, okay? So, the R, of course, represents Roxy Zebek, the captain and founder. Okay, great. The O could mean Ochoku or Wang Shi. That was the Wang Shi character that was mentioned. The way that it's written is like this with the kanji. In Chinese, it would be Wang Shi, who was actually an historical pirate and smuggler back in the 16th century. Chinese smuggler that actually was responsible for introducing guns, matchlocks, into Japan. So that's an interesting person. So Wang Shi, Chinese, Ochoku in the Japanese reading of this, of the kanji. So that's the O. The C is Charlotte Linlin, Big Mom. The K is, of course, Kaido. And the S could either mean Shiki, or it can mean Shakuyaku, or Shaki, who was, you know, Rayleigh's wife right now, but very likely was a member of the Rocks crew back in the day. We didn't get that confirmed 100%, like Shiki is confirmed to be a member of the crew, but Shaki most likely had connections to them because she was like, oh yeah, 40 years ago I was a pirate and Garp used to chase me around. That's kind of landed on sort of thick there. Also in an SBS, somebody asked that question about Shaki being a member of Rox's crew, and Oda's response to that was basically like, oh, what? No, I've never heard of that. Maybe, I don't know. So it's pretty much like, yeah, she was a member of it at least at one point. I guess the S could also mean Shirohige, Whitebeard. So yeah, other than that, you know, there is no E's for Edward or W's for Whitebeards in here, but still, I just find it interesting. Like I said, probably not the case. They probably just named the crew Rocks after the captain. You know, they weren't probably very creative. They just wanted to get out there in the world and wreak havoc. I would say they probably weren't going to spend a lot of time on the name, but I just thought that was a little strange. All right, so 38 years ago, that was the God Valley incident, where Garp and Roger teamed up to take down the Rocks crew. That's the place Rocks apparently died, and all the other members of the crew disbanded. Whitebeard, Big Mom, Kaido went their separate ways to become the Yonko of a new generation. Shiki, we actually really don't know what happened to him right now in the story. He went to go become a really well-known pirate. He might have even been a Yonko back in his day. After Roger got captured, Shiki went to go to try to kill him at Marineford, and he ended up getting beaten down by Sengoku and Garp himself, got thrown and impaled down. He got freed using his power. He sliced off his legs and used his float fruit to escape impelled down, but we don't know where he's at right now in the world, because the events of Strong World were not canon, but Shiki himself is canon. There was Silver Axe. We don't know anything about that character. There was the aforementioned Ochoku, or Wang Shi, who historically has some interesting things to talk about, but in terms of the actual story of One Piece, don't know anything about that character. There was Captain John. Don't really know that much about what Captain John did while he was alive. We saw him as a general zombie at Thriller Bark, of course, and Buggy apparently now has his treasure, or at least he has the armband that leads to the treasure. It's been 2 years since Buggy has acquired that, though, so I'm going to assume he's gotten the treasure at that point. On top of that, we have the man, the myth, the legend himself, Rox D. Zebek, whom we really don't know that much about. We know he was a rather evil kind of looking dude just by looking at his silhouette here, and he wanted to become the king of the world. I mean, that seems like a rather cliche 90s action movie kind of villain, you know, I want to rule the world. But, you know, that's what he wanted to do. And, you know, with the amount of power that he had behind him, not just himself, but also his crew and the, you know, the big members that were there, I mean, come on now, I think he probably could have achieved that, but Garp and Roger teamed up to stop him, alright? Oh, man, I can imagine seeing that going down, like Garp approaching Roger or Roger approaching Garp and is like, hey there, Garp, how about we team up for a change and take these pirates down? Honestly, it might have been much more noble than that. It might have been Garp and Roger both realizing that Rox could have actually done it. Rox might actually have been able to take over the entire world, and they were just imagining the sheer anarchy and chaos that would lead to. So maybe they decided it was like a lesser of two evils kind of thing, where it's like, right now, the world is being controlled by the government and the Tenryubito. Not a great scenario, not a great situation to be in, but the situation of Rox taking over the entire world and enacting just pirate law, you know, that's the law where everybody has to wear an eye patch and have a parrot. I don't know where I'm gonna find a parrot. It's 12 o'clock noon on a Sunday. Where the hell am I gonna find a parrot? So they decided, you know what, we need to stop this madman right now. And so Garp and Roger teamed up and took him down. Of course, this is not the official story that's on the books. The official story that the Marines propagate is that Garp went in there, fists a-blazing, and he beat the crap out of them and defeated Rox, or rather, you know, killed Rox right there, because now he's, at least from Sengoku's endpoint, he's supposed to be dead. And, yeah, he got the epithet as Garp the hero from that point onward, alright? So, yeah. Let's go through some ages here, alright? So I went back through the timeline to see what anything else was going on 38 years ago. Beyond the God Valley incident, nothing really all that major happened 38 years ago. A couple people were born, like Hachan, he was born 38 years ago. Montdor was born 38 years ago as a member of Big Mom's family, and that's an interesting point to bring up here, okay? So, at this point in the story, Big Mom was 30 years old, okay, so just slightly older than the drawing that Oda did of her in the SBS when she was 28, okay, so 2 years older than that. That's how old she was when the Rox crew dismantled, when Rox was apparently defeated by Garp and then the crew had to go their separate ways, okay? Now, 3 years after this incident, 35 years ago, that's when Charlotte Smoothie was born. And the reason that that's relevant is because if you look at the Vivre cards, thanks Artur, if you look at the Vivre cards, the Charlotte children's birthplaces are given. Not every single one of them, but the main ones are, the ones that are very prominent in the story, okay? And the further back you go, the first of the Charlotte children's to be born, like, you know, Perospero, Katakuri, Oven, Daifuku, they list their location of birth as, like, some random ship, some random town, some random port, because Big Mom had not yet founded Totland yet, okay? However, Charlotte Smoothie, who was born 35 years ago, it does indeed list her place of birth as Totland, okay? So that means that 38 years ago, Montdor was born. It was given that Montdor's place of birth was just a random boat, probably the Rox crew's boat, okay? And then, 3 years after this incident, that is when Smoothie was born in Totland. So that means that Totland was pretty much established basically right after the Rox crew dismantled. Big Mom decided to go her own separate way, and I'm sure, you know, she had her own children. She had like 30 kids at that point. She gave birth to 30 kids. I mean, she gave birth to, like, you know, more than one kid every year, obviously, because it was only because she gave birth to Perospero, her first child, when she was 18, and she was 30 when the Rox crew dismantled, okay? But remember, like, Opera, where he was a member of quintuplets, okay? So that's 5 kids all born the same year, right? So she had 30 kids by the time she left, Montdor being the youngest, and then she went off and then founded Totland, and then at that point, you know, Smoothie and all the other kids were born after that. So that's interesting to note for the timelines there. Shanks and Buggy were only 1 year old at this point, okay? Can you imagine little baby Shanks in his crib, you know, just holding a little baby version of Griffin, like, I'm gonna be a young Yonko someday, shing! Even as a baby, Shanks could, like, slice their entire, like, his nursery in half, okay? It was very dangerous. I want to see an image of baby Shanks, little baby Shanks swinging a sword around, slicing up his crib and crab. He's just like, that boy is gonna be destined for greatness right there. And then Buggy's just in the crib next to him, just crying away. Yeah, Buggy and Shanks are the same age, okay? So they were only a year old at this point, but they're getting there, okay? 38 years ago was also the same year that Katakuri decided to hide his mouth. That was the whole thing that happened with Brule being attacked, and so Katakuri went after the people that attacked her, and, you know, he was very intimidating, and he disguised his mouth with the cloth, and that was when he decided, you know, I'm gonna be the most reliable older brother ever that never lays down, never is defeated, you know, that kind of, that kind of image of himself he wanted to project to his whole family. All right, so that's the year that happened. It was also the year that Dr. Heerluck returned to Drum Island after journeying all over the world, apparently being cured by his sickness by cherry blossoms, which is probably most likely Wano, but we don't know 100%. That's not really important. I just want to throw it in there. So that's all the stuff that was really going on 38, 39 years ago, 35 years ago, around that same timeline, all right? So, what about the other ages? Well, at this point, we don't know Kaido's age right now. I'm assuming he's around the same age as Big Mom, maybe a little bit younger, but we don't know Kaido's age. At this point, Whitebeard was 36 years old. He was 72 when he died. That was 2 years ago, so he would have been 74 right now. So Whitebeard was 36 while he was on after. Well, not when he joined Rox's crew, just 38 years ago when the crew disbanded, he was 36. Okay, that's something very important to keep in mind. 38 years ago marked the end of all of this, all right? So Rox could have very well started his crew up, you know, 50 years ago, or even further back than that. We don't exactly know. It's not necessarily that, like, Big Mom and Whitebeard and, you know, Captain John all had to join up at the exact same moment, okay? They most likely did, but we just don't know that for certain. So it could have been maybe, I'm gonna maybe say 50 years ago. Because you'd figure, like, if it was the Rox crew that really gave, like, Big Mom and Kaido and Whitebeard their first shot, you know, to really train under a really strong pirate and learn about the world and travel the new world and, you know, make a reputation for themselves, that would be the best place to do it. So let's say, let's say Rox formed the crew 50 years ago. Big Mom would have been 18 at that point, okay? And that would have been, like, the perfect time, like, she's in her younger years to start and become, you know, a well-known, well, she was already kind of well-known because she was, like, a little girl stomping all over the world. She already had a high bounty. But, yeah, let's say maybe, like, 50-something years ago, that's when the Rox crew was actually formed, and they met their end at God Valley 38 years ago, okay? So Whitebeard was 36. Bakin, once again, not confirmed in the last chapter that Bakin was a member of the crew. She was not mentioned by Sengoku, but really, I think Sengoku in that chapter was just mentioning, like, the heavy hitters on the crew, like Roxy, Zebek, Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, Captain John, Shiki, the Golden Lion Shiki, Silver Axe, whoever that was, Wang Shi, right? Those were the heavy hitters. They obviously had probably a lot more members of the crew, like Shaki and, like, Bakin, okay? So Bakin was 38 years old, so if Whitebeard and her got together, I guess, you know, Whitebeard's into some older ladies, I suppose. I was only 2 years older, but still. Let's see. And, oh yeah, Weevil was born 35 years ago. Weevil is the same age as Smoothie. So that would mean that, let's say if Miss Bakin really is Weevil's mother, because I'm thinking Oda might do some kind of thing where it's like, oh yeah, right now it's implied that Weevil is Whitebeard's son, but there's no way, like, nobody believes that he's actually Whitebeard's son, but it's like he's very, very loyal to his mother, so, like, she has to be his real mother, right? Well, I'm thinking this might get switched at some point, and the thing that we're gonna find out is, oh no, Weevil really is Whitebeard's son, but Bakin is not his mother. That might be something that might be funny, right? Like, kind of twisting what we really think, right? But if that was the case, then yeah, Bakin, you know, 3 years right after the crew disbanded, she gave birth to Weevil, okay? If that was really the case, if she really is his mother. Let's see, Shaki would have been 26. So pretty young, even compared to, like, Big Mom, Whitebeard, they were all in their 30s at this point. Shaki was 26, so pretty young. Right now, of course, she's still got it going on. Way to go, Rayleigh. Speaking of Rayleigh, I mean, Rayleigh wasn't, you know, on the crew or anything, but Roger's crew clashed with Rox's, I'm sure, on numerous occasions before the God Valley incident. Rayleigh was 40. He's the same age as Garp. Garp was 40 back when, you know, they clashed there at God Valley. They're both 78 years old right now. Roger was 39. when they clashed. So Garp was 40 and Roger 39. They teamed up to beat down Rox. He was 53 when he was executed. That was Roger, and now he would have been 77 in the current storyline. So yeah, those are just all the timelines I just wanted to get squared there. Major events that was going on in the ages of all these major pirates. All right, so we got that squared away. Okay, so some other things that were hinted at earlier but never directly confirmed. We know at one point Kaido owes some sort of debt to Big Mom. She brought this up when they were trying to figure out who was going to take down the Straw Hats after Straw Hats, you know, did everything in Totland. They were heading to Wano. Big Mom got on the Den Den Mushi and is like, hey, you leave your dragon claws off of them. They're mine, okay? You owe me one, right? So I'm assuming this life debt, whatever it was, that's why I think Kaido's a little bit younger than Big Mom. And so, you know, during the Rock's crew, there was like maybe some big epic battle. Might have even been the battle at God Valley, because we know Rox apparently met his end at God Valley, but you know the others managed to get away, right? So maybe there was something where Garp or Rayleigh or Roger had Kaido dead to rights in his younger years, and it's like, it's over for you, Kaido. Maybe he didn't have the dragon fruit at this point. Maybe he didn't have that level of unkillability yet. All right, and then Big Mom came in at the last minute with her children or with Napoleon drawn and managed to save his life or something like that. And Big Mom's like, Mama, you owe me for this, you know, and Kaido's like, whatever. And so they managed to escape that event. There's so much about, it's like you open up a door and there's like 15 more in the corridor you just found out about. It's just like, damn it, Oda. So now we need to learn all about this God Valley place. Now we need to learn about how this battle went down. We need to learn about what actually happened with Rox. We need to learn how Whitebeard and Kaido and Big Mom and everybody managed to get away from this. I'm sure Garp and Roger's main goal was to take down Rox. They saw Rox as the main threat, all right? Which is the thing that makes it rather impressive that they had to team up to take him down, right? We're learning about this incredibly powerful character that even the King of the Pirates or you know, the hero of the Marines, Garp, could not take on by themselves. They had to team up, right? So that got me thinking, as I said in the review, either it's going to turn out Rox is like a Kaguya kind of character where at like the 11th hour we discover that, holy crap, Rox is still alive and he's the final villain of the story and Luffy has to go Gear 6 to fight him or whatever. All the Straw Hats have to jump him at once. Or we're going to find out that Blackbeard is like the descendant, the child, or maybe just the student of Rox in some way, and Blackbeard is trying to like achieve his legacy and discover some of his treasure, or, you know, have some access to some weapon he had at some point. Maybe Rox had access to an ancient weapon. Maybe that's why he was so terrifying. Who knows? But there's definitely going to be a connection back to this, okay? This is endgame level stuff we're talking about here. Whenever we get to this final battle of One Piece, whatever that final battle is going to look like, wherever it's going to be, however it's going to be set up, it's going to involve Rox in some way. Whether that mean Rox actually being there alive, or maybe coming back as a zombie because Blackbeard currently has Moriya's Kage no Mi powers. You know, maybe it might be something about that, or it might be about Blackbeard actually being related or, you know, studied under Rox at some point, and then that's why it all connects back to Rox. Rox is going to play a pivotal role here, okay? Absolutely, 100%, all right? And we, of course, we don't know anything about how Rox actually fought. You know, we saw him using a sword, kind of the same way we saw Roger using a cutlass when he was clashing with them, but beyond that, I want to think that Rox, considering how, you know, absolutely strong he was, he had a devil fruit, maybe the strongest devil fruit in the world. Oh, here's an idea. I don't know about this. I don't know how this would pan out, but, I mean, who had the Gura Gura no Mi before Whitebeard did? You know, that's a pretty damn OP fruit we're talking about there, the Quake fruit, all right? So whoever had that fruit before Whitebeard, it better have been somebody like a monk or somebody that was like, I will not use this great earth-shattering power to destroy the world. Because if any pirate got their hands on that fruit, it would be devastating, right? So let's say Rox had that fruit, and then he was killed, and then Whitebeard got the fruit afterwards because maybe Whitebeard was smart enough to know, it's like, okay, I can't let anybody else get their hands on this fruit. We know it couldn't have been Big Mom because Big Mom already had the Soul fruit at that point, you know, so that couldn't have been anything like that. Kaido might have had the dragon fruit, he might not have had, but maybe Whitebeard got this fruit from him, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna eat this fruit now, and I'm gonna use it the right way, okay, because if this fruit falls into the wrong hands, we're all screwed. So yeah, that would have meant, of course, that while Whitebeard was on Rox's crew, he didn't have his powers until Rox died, but I'm just throwing this idea out there as a possibility, okay? So this is a really ridiculously OP fruit. Whitebeard either found it somewhere on an island, just untouched, like, oh, nobody had this fruit for a few generations, or another really strong character had it and then died, and then Whitebeard got a hold of it, okay? Because he knew how to actually handle it, all right? And then he trained with it for like 50-something years afterwards, or like 40-something years afterwards until his death. And now, of course, Blackbeard has it, which would tie it back into Blackbeard being related to rocks. It just starts... I'm gonna have to come up with a conspiracy chart back here, guys, all right? We're gonna be doing a video about that, you know, Blackbeard's relationship there, because people I've discovered more and more people, you know, pulling stuff up out of like the SBSs and things that I didn't even remember. Like somebody commented on the video yesterday, like Oda did state that Blackbeard's hobby was studying history. Maybe the history of rocks. I'm like, yes, it was the history of rocks. I'm riding this train to the end, all right? This is going down. I would really rather prefer it being, you know, Rox' son, but even if it was just his student, that's cool. People have even brought it up like, well, he has it, you know, Shishi, as I said, could mean teacher or mentor. Marshall D. Teach. That's kind of hitting it a little bit on the nose, but still, I'll take it. I'm going for this 100%. All right. So, yeah. Okay, something interesting about Shocky let's bring up. Okay, so Shocky was stated to be running around with this pirate crew that Garp chased after, and then she retired from being a pirate 40 years ago. Now, she might have just been, you know, rounding up or rounding down, you know, because it was 38 years ago, but maybe she didn't want to say 38. Maybe she was like, yeah, about 40 years ago, I just gave up the pirate game. But let's take her words at face value. Let's say it was exact, okay? That was actually before the time skip, so 40 years ago would have now been 42 years ago. So if she did leave the Rocks crew 42 years ago, that would, of course, mean, you know, that would explain how she's still alive, of course. And, you know, that would explain why Sengoku didn't mention her, and that would explain why we didn't see her silhouette when they were clashing with Roger and Garp. She already left the crew at that point, right? And then I like to think at some point, you know, still, Roger's crew would have clashed with them beforehand, you know, many times. I'm sure the God Valley incident was not the first time Roger and Rox, you know, butted heads together. So Rayleigh would have known about her. I like to think at some point Rayleigh just found her at Sabaody and was just like, oh, you're Shakuyaku from Rox's crew. Man, you haven't aged a day. Shaki's like, you look pretty good yourself there, old-timer. And then they just, they got together that way. And just like, well, I've retired from that whole pirate game. Me too. And they just took it from there, all right? It's just like former enemies are now they're married. That's just great. So that's something interesting about Shaki, how she might have actually left the crew beforehand. Let's see. I brought up the whole thing that, yeah. I'm just going to throw it out there. I mean, we probably have already seen Rox before, because right here, this was during Whitebeard's flashback. We saw at Marineford, and we see a guy right there, and there's Rox right there. Pretty obvious, right? No, probably not. This was probably like Whitebeard's very, very first crew. Like when Whitebeard, I mean, in the flashback, he looks like he's in his late teens, early 20s, but Whitebeard's a pretty tough dude, so he might be freaking 13 in this image for all we know. No, probably not that young, but probably I would say like 18, 19, early 20s, something like that. That might have been the very, very first crew he was on. In fact, the crew he was on right here in this flashback might have been attacked and, you know, devastated by Rox, and then Rox was like, maybe Whitebeard was the only surviving member of that crew, and he's like, ugh, you defeated everybody, and like, that was my family, and Rox is like, well then join us. Like, alright, I guess, you know, but that didn't happen until much later, right? Like, I'm thinking Whitebeard's pretty young in this flashback, and he, you know, was 36 when the crew got disbanded, so even if we want to say 50 years ago, well, that would have been like 24, so I guess that could have worked there. That's how Whitebeard came to join the crew at some point. Yeah, because here's the thing with Whitebeard. Whitebeard, even when he was a little kid, all he wanted was a family. You know, it was a very noble quest for Whitebeard. He grew up in this poverty-stricken land. There was constant war there, you know, and then now we see how he treats his crew like family. He calls them all his sons, right? So I'm trying to think, like with Kaido and Big Mom, I can understand the sales pitch here. You know, like, Rox is like, let's join up and take over the world, and Kaido and Big Mom would be like, yeah! And Shiki would be like, yeah! Whitebeard doesn't strike me as a man that would really go for that. Like, yeah, let's take over the world, devastate everybody. Because Whitebeard, that doesn't seem to be his goal, right? But maybe he was interested in the prospect of it. Maybe he was interested in the crew and been like, well, you know, I'm not really interested in taking over the world or anything like that, but Rocks is a very strong pirate, and I would like to travel on his ship. You know, maybe it might be something closer to that, but I don't think he had the same goals as Kaido and Big Mom and Shiki and everybody did. So, as for those members that we don't know anything about, Silver Axe, I don't know. He probably used a silver axe in combat. And I did mention that there was that filler at Logtown, which is an extremely flimsy connection, but yeah, there was apparently a famous gunner named Silver. So, I don't know. Maybe we'll get to see Silver Axe, and he used an axe, but he also used a silver rifle. I don't know. And speaking of rifle, let's talk about Wang Shi. So, Wang Shi, historically, Chinese pirate, Chinese smuggler back during the 16th century, okay? He was actually responsible for bringing matchlock rifles into Japan. There's an island that's on the south of Japan, right underneath Kyushu, named Tanegashima. And some Portuguese and Wang Shi landed there. Wang Shi basically was the interpreter for them, and the Portuguese had matchlock rifles, and the Japanese were looking at them, and they was like, oh yeah, these could be rather useful. Now keep in mind, at this point in Japan, neither the emperor nor the shogun really had a lot of power. It was really up to the daimyos of different regions. The daimyos controlled different regions, and for the main, you know, for most purposes, they were the ones that were the main governing bodies. They were the ones that made up all the rules, these individual daimyos, right? So there was a daimyo that ruled over Tanegashima, this tiny little island, and he was really stricken by the weapons. I was like, oh yeah, this could be useful, and they started to mass produce these in Japan. Wang Shi also helped bring in saltpeter, which could be used to make gunpowder. He smuggled that into the country, and he smuggled the sulfur that could be found in Japan out of the country into China. So very prominent smuggler, kind of around China and Thailand and southern Japan and that kind of region back in the day, all right? So yeah, now how does that translate into you know, One Piece? Well, it could probably translate into the fact that he would like to have matchlocks as a main weapon. I would assume that. In fact, they called matchlock rifles Tanegashima in Japan. That was the name they gave to them after the island where they were introduced by the Portuguese with the assistance of Wang Shi. All right, so the rifles were just called Tanegashima in Japan, right? So I would love to see this Wang Shi character or Ochoku character in Japanese being introduced and having like a crap ton of matchlock rifles, like 7 matchlock rifles tied to his back, and he's carrying one, and he's got a bunch of flintlocks. He's just like, ha ha ha, men! This is great! I am Wang Shi, the world's greatest gunner! This is fantastic! He's like firing shots from behind, because we really haven't seen a pirate that uses guns in that way. Yeah, sure, Blackbeard carries around flintlocks with him and everything, but this is a manga where pirates eat magical fruits to get superpowers, alright? So we're gonna focus on that for the most part. Yeah, we got Baby 5, who's got the Buki no Mi, she uses guns. We got Frankie with his weapons left and everything. But I'm talking about a really, really strong pirate that uses old traditional matchlock, you know, rifles as their primary weapon, and they're just like dead shot with it. You know, kind of like Van Augur. Van Augur is really the closest character we have to that right now, but Van Augur only has the one rifle. I want to see Wang Shi busting out, smoking a cigar, having like 20 freaking matchlocks strapped to his body, but he uses them with pinpoint accuracy in every single scenario, okay? Like, he was the best sniper, marksman, gunner in the history of the One Piece world, okay? More so than Augur, more so than Yasop, and more so than Usopp. But of course, Usopp doesn't count as a human because he's a god, but still, Wang Shi was up there, alright? So that's how I feel about Wang Shi. Captain John, I'm sure Captain John was really strong too, but from what we've seen at Thriller Bark, I mean, he was a drunk, and he also used, you know, swords as a main weapon, so, I don't know, maybe he's kind of like a Hyozo from Fishman Island, like, he gets really drunk and just, it's delicious, shing, 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 and, like, slices apart, like, 17, you know, pirates in one go, and just shing, glug, 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 and it just keeps walking forward, and they all just die immediately. They all just get sliced into fish bait, alright? So, yeah, Captain John, I'm sure he was impressive. So yeah, that's everything right now we got handled on Rox's crew. We're probably going to head back to Wano next chapter, so don't hold out for any more information for a while. Act 3 of Wano is probably going to be the longest part, because this is the big apex of the Kabuki play, where we have the epic climactic showdown, and then Act 4 and 5 are going to be pretty quick in terms of just relative to the other acts. But Act 3 is probably going to be the longest. Act 2 was like 15 chapters, something like that. I think it was like from chapter 909 to 920. 924, and then we had 925 was the buffer chapter, and then like all the way up to 956. So yeah, it's been like 30 chapters of Act 2. So I would like to put Act 3 somewhere between 30 to 50 chapters, and then Act 4 being less than 5, and then I can honestly see Act 5 just being 1, because Act 5 of the Kabuki is like a speedy resolution. Like, okay, that was great, you saved the world, you defeated the dragon, awesome, let's get going. You know, so I can imagine Act 5 just being 1 chapter. So yeah, anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for being here, Barry. I know you have a colorful past that we're not going to bring up, because why would I do that? Okay, just gonna, yeah, okay. Yeah. Oh my god, a giant scorpion!